Respected Vladimir Vladimirovich, dear guests, let me straight away say a big thank you to you for adhering all this time to the unchanging tradition, where the leaders of the world's news agencies come here to the northern capital during the days of the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum for a frank conversation with you and invite our colleagues from the TASS agency to this meeting. Let a representative of the better half of journalism start our discussion, and that will be Kozhebeva Raushandzhina Berganovna. She is the Director General of the Television and Radio Complex of the President of Kazakhstan. Please, Raushandzhina Berganovna, the first question is for you.
Thank you very much. Respected Vladimir Vladimirovich, I have two questions for you right away. Just the other day, your state visit to Kazakhstan took place. The visit was very successful and definitively became one of the significant events of the bilateral agenda of the current year. Within the framework of the visit, you and our President Kassym-Jomart Kemelyevich Tokayev adopted a joint document on the 7 foundations of friendship and good neighborliness between the peoples of Kazakhstan and Russia. The first question is, what do you see as the significance of this document? And the second question, one of the most discussed topics of your visit was the Amur tigers, which Russia presented as a gift to Kazakhstan. President Tokayev called the significance of this gift the highlight of the visit. Tell me, please, can it be said that this is not only and not simply an ecological project, but, let's say, a certain symbol, a bright symbol of trust between the countries? Thank you.
Our relations with Kazakhstan are developing very successfully, on the rise. At the same time, I want to note right away that our Kazakh friends and partners are not such easy partners. We always have a very sharp discussion on almost every issue. This concerns financial mutual relations, relations in industry, conditions of investment activity, or some large projects. But on both sides, there is a desire to find a compromise that would not just suit both sides, but would contribute to achieving common goals. And the common goal is one: the development and improvement of the well-being of the citizens of Kazakhstan and Russia. We understand all this well. We know it. We are connected by centuries of history, without any exaggeration. And we have certain known advantages that were left to us from the times when we were part of a single state. What advantages? Cooperation. First of all, unified transport links. You asked the question in Russian. I am grateful to you for that. This is also an important factor that acquires, to a certain extent, in certain cases and most often, a purely economic dimension. Everything is clear, we understand each other, we speak the same language. There is an enormous interest in continuing those advantages given by education. Moreover, the level of education developing in Kazakhstan and the level of education, new trends in the development of education in the Russian Federation. As you remember, the President of Kazakhstan and I were present at the beginning of the operation of the Sirius system, which has recommended itself well and has developed good methods for finding and supporting talented children. Of course, there are many talented kids in Kazakhstan, and they just need to be found. This direction of our cooperation will be dedicated to that. Energy is a well-known matter. It is industry, space. Now there is a new huge project related to the construction of a nuclear power plant in Kazakhstan. I want to note that Kazakhstan is a country with very rich resources that are extremely needed and in demand all over the world. I mean fuel for power plants, nuclear power plants, and we cooperate along this direction with Kazakhstan. We cooperate successfully. And I am confident that, relying on its own resource base and developing our joint potential, Kazakhstan will achieve great success and solve many problems in the field of energy, and will diversify its energy resources. In my opinion, up to 20% is expected that Kazakhstan will receive the necessary electricity through the nuclear power plant. We mine uranium jointly, as I already said, and we will continue to do so. But the most important thing is not that nuclear power plant blocks will be built in Kazakhstan. The most important thing is that a new industry will be created. This concerns the training of personnel. This concerns scientific activity and production. All of this is joint. This direction is extremely important both for us and for Kazakhstan. We will continue work in space, in machine building, in very many directions. I have already spoken about humanitarian ties. Education plays a huge role. A large number of Kazakhs study in Russian universities, and we are very grateful to the President of Kazakhstan for initiating the creation of an international structure for the support of the Russian language. This, I believe, is aimed at the future, aimed at preserving our relations and developing them in all directions, including the humanitarian aspect. Therefore, regarding the tigers, this is a completely natural matter. We are simply thinking about restoring nature, restoring ecology, flora, fauna. We are also being helped. For example, snow leopards were transferred to us from Tajikistan, for which we are very grateful to our friends from Tajikistan. We have done a lot to preserve the population of Far Eastern tigers. These, by the way, are the largest tigers in the world. There are none larger. Far Eastern tigers, they are the largest. Roughly similar tigers used to be in Kazakhstan once upon a time. And if we can help our friends with something, in this case, our friends in Kazakhstan, we, of course, will do it. I observe this picture. It makes an impression. By the way, we held the so-called Tiger Summit here. Very many countries in the world are concerned about preserving the population of these beautiful animals. And I hope our cooperation in this, as well as in other directions related to ecology, is very important. This concerns a completely pragmatic question, such as the exploitation, the use of resources of transboundary rivers. There is something to talk about here. We have a lot of work in this direction. I am sure that everything will be implemented. Thank you.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, to your left, is Mr. Fu Hua. He represents the Xinhua Agency in China. And literally, 2 weeks ago, if you remember, he, together with the TASS Agency, held an exhibition for you and for the president of the PRC, Xi Jinping. And now, 2 weeks later, he is already visiting us with his question. Please, Comrade Fu Hua.
Respected Vladimir Vladimirovich, I am glad that you were with us in China. It was a wonderful visit, very successful. And this year, of course, we held a very important exhibition dedicated to the Jubilee year of our news agencies. Thank you for giving us special attention. And allow me to take advantage of this occasion to ask you my questions. In May, you made your 25th visit to China already. And together with President Xi Jinping, discussed very important issues concerning our international relations. We calculated that over these 14 years, you have met more than 50 times. This is truly a huge, unprecedented result. Our relations are good neighborly, friendly, and are at the highest stage. I believe that this visit left a very deep impression on you. This close interaction is a very high level. We achieved it. In what way? How did we arrive at such an unprecedented level? This is the first question. The second question, together, we published a joint statement, a new comprehensive joint statement. And we, of course, adhere to the UN Charter and defend its principles and goals in their entirety and fullness. And of course, we protect the international world order. We are victors in the Second World War. How should we protect the historical truth? How should we pass it on to our future generations? Not allowing anyone to destroy this historical truth. These two questions I would like to ask you.
First of all, I want to thank you for the warm welcome during the visit to Beijing. During the visit to the exhibition that you organized together with your colleagues, Mr. Kondrashov. It was a very interesting, substantial exhibition. Thank you very much. Regarding the results of our interaction, here is what I would like to draw attention to. In recent years, especially after the start of the events that are still taking place in the Ukrainian direction, it is increasingly said that Russia made a turn toward Asia, that it changed its policy. Russia changed nothing and made no turns. After all, the treaty that lies at the foundation of our interaction and which is the base for achieving our current results, they are impressive. According to various statistics, our trade turnover is somewhere under $250 billion. A powerful diversification is taking place. But when did this start? In 2001. We signed this basic treaty back in 2001. We are natural allies and partners. We are neighbors, we have a huge common border, neighbors are not chosen. This is given by history. That is how it turned out. Over centuries and in the course of interaction, a certain system of principles of our relations has developed. Not yesterday, not today, not 5 years ago, but over centuries the principles of our relations were being formed. China is developing rapidly, actively. It occupies a larger and larger niche in the world economy, in world politics, in international affairs as a whole. Of course, we watched this closely. We didn't just watch, but we worked together, cooperated. 25 years ago, we signed the basic agreement, which created good prerequisites and good fundamental conditions for the development of bilateral cooperation in all directions. Here is the result. In recent years, as the economy of China and the economy of Russia grow and diversify, more and more new opportunities open up for us, moreover, in the most diverse directions. I will not list everything now, but what, in my opinion, is essential and important. The most important thing is that in recent years we have been paying more and more attention to issues related to the new economy based on artificial intelligence, on information technologies, on achievements in the field of biology, genetics, and so on. We have always cooperated, not in the last 5 years, but always cooperated in the military field, and we continue this interaction just as it was before. Nothing new in this sense has happened. This is simply a tradition of our relations. Both in the military and in the military technical spheres, we think together over some developments in this area. This, I repeat, is not connected with current events, even if they attract the attention of the whole world, including in the Ukrainian direction or even in the Middle East. We simply work and are friends with China. as I have already said, not against anyone, but in each other's interests. That's all. It is here, especially on the path of achievements in the sphere of the same artificial intelligence, high technologies, that the future of our interaction lies. About this, we always talk at meetings with Chairman Xi Jinping. By the way, we have indeed developed relations of trust. He addresses me as my old friend, and I say this to him. But this is not an exaggeration. It is not a figure of speech. We have developed relations of trust. Of course, we are guided, first of all, by the national interests of our countries, but they often coincide. And personal relations are a good base for reaching new frontiers. Therefore, I believe that we have created good prerequisites for the development of interaction with China. I am confident that all the tasks we set during my visit will be resolved. All goals will be achieved. Our schedule of bilateral contacts with the chairman has been worked out for this year. But not only ours, the government, ministries, agencies, and our leading companies also meet and work, including in the energy sphere, where, I am sure, we will soon please the global energy sector with new agreements between Russia and China.
Генеральный директор и главный редактор индийского информационного агентства PTI.
Mr. President, first of all, thank you for the opportunity presented and for the hospitality extended. Mr. President, you are preparing to travel to India for the BRICS summit, which will take place in September. The world community is following the developing dynamics in relations between Russia and India. The especially privileged strategic partnership between Russia and India remains the foundation of relations between the countries. But some observers note that India's relations with Washington create structural complexities for relations with Russia. From your point of view, how can a new impetus be given to Russian-Indian relations? What steps need to be taken to ensure the strengthening of Russian-Indian ties in the face of geopolitical pressure? And how would you describe Russian-Indian relations at the current stage under the current geopolitical conditions? Thank you.
Why, you named them yourself. You described them yourself. That is how it is in reality. You said it is an especially privileged strategic partnership. That is how it is. It was also formed not yesterday, not the day before yesterday, not a year, not 5 years ago. It was formed over decades. In 1947, the Soviet Union then restored diplomatic relations with the Indian Republic and did everything to support the establishment of the new state. We are very glad that India, thanks to the hard work and talent of the Indian people, has achieved substantial and significant results in its development. We all know well, everyone gathered here definitely knows for sure, that India today demonstrates the highest rates of economic growth among the major economies of the world. This does not fall from the sky. This is all the result of concrete work. First of all, by the government under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. India demonstrates such development rates precisely during the time that the plans and strategies formed by Modi as the leader of the government of the Indian Republic are being implemented. We have a lot of joint work. We are confident that in the coming years we will reach $100 billion in trade turnover. Right now it is somewhere around 60 to 58 billion. But we have all the prerequisites to work more actively and achieve more ambitious goals. Here are not only our plans in the field of energy, including nuclear energy, where it is being built, it works. We expect new sites will be decided upon. In hydrocarbon energy, we will continue to work. We have one of the largest foreign investments in the Indian economy. We will continue to do this. To invest, we will do so mutually. It is well known to everyone that India works here in the pharmaceutical sphere, and our company is already ready to offer many things. I will not list everything. We are planning. We have outlined, to be precise, very good, promising, and far-reaching plans that are of interest to both India and Russia. But your question sounded somewhat strange to me. You said that India's cooperation with the United States creates difficulties in India's relations with Russia. There is nothing of the sort. Respected colleagues, where did you get this from? We are glad that India is developing relations with all countries. India is a great country, 1.5 billion people, a huge economy, the largest democracy, as they say. It should and must develop relations in its national interests with those it sees fit. Another aspect is that the United States tries to exert pressure on India on certain issues. In particular, on certain issues of cooperation with Russia. But it seems to me everyone understood long ago that pressing, for example, Prime Minister Modi, who leads a state with a 1.5 billion population, is useless. Moreover, it harms international relations and bilateral relations, no matter which country this pressure comes from. We do not see any negative consequences. It appears that we will be able to reach an agreement with all participants in this process. And as of today, we do not observe any serious consequences of this state of affairs. We are developing relations with India. We will develop them. And we consider India a reliable partner.
Just like the USA. Look, James Jordan, one of those who came from the US agency, this press, to ask tough questions. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kondrashov, for organizing this event. It is always interesting to listen to Mr. President on many issues. We have been doing this for 3 years already. It is always a very interesting experience. Thank you. Mr. Putin, yesterday hundreds of drones were sent by Ukraine toward Russia. Some hit a naval base nearby, some hit a warehouse. And we saw a cloud of smoke over St. Petersburg, over your hometown. Also, the operation of the airport was disrupted. Moreover, your personal ratings have fallen, the Russian economy is falling, and the U.S. claims that the invasions have become a real disaster. These are the words of Marco Rubio. It was also added that the goals will not be achieved by military means, not only by military means. Do you want to control the entire Donbas region, or are you ready to make a deal? Thank you very much.
First of all, one does not exclude the other. Controlling the entire Donbas region and making a deal do not contradict each other. Why did you assume that this is in contradiction? You referenced the statement of Mr. Rubio. This is a serious partner. We are in contact with him. He recently spoke in the Senate or in Congress. It is clear that the internal political situation in the United States is not simple. Someone supports him, someone attacks him. And what the Secretary of State says on a specific issue inside the country certainly interests us. But still, we are more interested in the real situation. And if you are talking now about the conflict in Ukraine, then we are interested in the real situation in this direction. How does it look, this situation? It looks as follows. First of all, and attention must be drawn to this, Russian troops are advancing along the entire line of combat contact. There is no place where there is no advance of Russian troops. The most main problem of the armed forces of Ukraine today is a catastrophic shortage of personnel. Recently, the strength of the armed forces of Ukraine decreased by 100,000 people. Monthly losses are about 40,000. As a result, forced mobilization of people there. As you know, they catch them on the street like homeless dogs and force them into the army. I will speak about these consequences too now. Monthly losses amount to approximately 40,000 people. Forced mobilization yields about 15 to 16,000 a month. About 14,000, approximately, return from hospitals after being wounded. Thus, every month is roughly minus 10,000 people, plus every month about 20,000 deserters. Since the beginning of this year, the number of deserters is approximately 60,000 people. Well, people are taken by force, there is no motivation, nobody wants to fight. An almost official figure, 200,000 criminal cases have been initiated for desertion. This is one of the problems, but the most significant one. This leads to the loss of territories and settlements. Just recently, I won't name the number of settlements now, because I am afraid to make a mistake. But approximately 2,440 square kilometers, the Russian army has put under its control. The offensive happens, as I already said, daily. At the present moment, if you spoke about Donbass, the Russian army, the Russian Federation has completely taken control of the Lugansk People's Republic, 100%, and has put under its control over 85% of the territory of the Donetsk People's Republic, DPR. Quite recently, Ukraine controlled somewhere around 25%. Now it is already less than 15%. 80% of the territory of the Zaporozhye region. And this process continues in a daily mode. Yes, Western sponsors supply a large number of drones of the most diverse types, including long-range ones. Some of them, unfortunately for us, break through. But Russia has an air defense system. Yes, we must improve it. Yes, we must strengthen it, and we will do so. But Ukraine does not have such a system at all. There are just separate elements, but there is no system. There are Patriots, other systems, which yield, which are also catastrophically lacking. But a system as such does not exist. Strike systems do not exist, such as those in the Russian Federation, meaning hypersonic missiles, cruise missiles, moreover of sea, air, and land basing. And there is something else that is the most important thing. There is patriotism and the will of the Russian people, which is the main condition for us to achieve all the goals and tasks of the special military operation. In the list of questions that I consider important, one more circumstance should, of course, be mentioned. This is the presence of our own production, resource, scientific, and personnel base, for solving all tasks to provide for the armed forces of the Russian Federation. And this is being strengthened with every month, and absolutely lies at the foundation of all those achievements and successes I have just spoken about. Therefore, summarizing, I would add this. We absolutely are ready and want to reach an agreement with Ukraine by peaceful means. Moreover, on the basis that we spoke about at the meeting with President Trump in Anchorage, and back then, questions were put before Russia so that we could agree to certain compromises. And to those compromises we spoke about in Anchorage, Russia agrees. It is necessary that the Ukrainian side also agrees to these compromises, and the conflict will quickly come to its natural conclusion.
Могли бы пойти на определенные компромиссы. И вот на те компромиссы, о которых мы говорили в Анкоридже, Россия согласна. Нужно, чтобы с этими компромиссами была согласна и украинская сторона. И конфликт быстро придет к своему естественному завершению.
Did you get answers to all your questions, James Jordan? You will be able to ask more questions if we have time left. But for now, allow me, Vladimir Vladimirovich, to ask you a question. Those retaliation strikes that we are delivering today in response to the unbridled terrorist attacks by Ukraine against infrastructure objects used by the AFU, against military-industrial complex objects, they are already taking on such a systemic character before our eyes. True, it is not completely clear. One of our latest attacks, retaliation strikes, was the Oreshnik used then. And in general, what does the use of this kind of weapon give us?
As for our new systems, they are appearing. This applies to the Oreshnik as well. But this differs somewhat from what we did in former times before the conflict in the Ukrainian direction. What do I mean? After all, we tested similar systems at testing ranges, but we didn't test the Oreshnik. And this is not combat use. We generally haven't had a single combat use, in the full sense of this word, of the Oreshnik on the territory of Ukraine. And the latest one, this is generally, if honestly, I will open a big military state secret to you. We simply struck where it was convenient to see the results. This applies to Belaya Tsarkov, and even more so applies to the DPR area in the perimeter of the main fortified area. Our drones then flew in there, into this shed that was struck, and simply looked at how the multiple re-entry vehicles were laid down. They calculated down to the millimeter, everything anywhere. For us, this is important in order to make decisions in the future about the full-scale use of the Oreshnik against designated targets, including in the area of urban development.
Thank you. Friends, who is next? Martin Romanchik, DPA, Germany. True, I wanted to ask Martin a question myself first, if you permit. You represent the largest main news agency of Germany. From a journalistic perspective, do you pay attention to the fact that your country is preparing for war? Is this true, or does it just seem so to us, and that she is really going to fight with Russia?
I protest. You may not answer. You are not at an interrogation here. You are here as an investigator. Interrogate me.
Then we will talk separately. Good. After this meeting.
Please.
I would like to answer your question. No, I don't think so. Respected Mr. President, thank you very much for the invitation. I would also like to touch upon the theme of Ukraine, and would like to pick up the question that has already been asked here. You spoke of peace. Germany and many European states would like to take part in these peace negotiations, which are currently being conducted through the mediation of the USA. Despite the war in Iran, what role can Germany play? What role can the Federal Chancellor play? And if you permit, I will supplement this question. As a negotiator from the Europeans, you spoke of Gerhard Schröder. Besides Gerhard Schröder, whom can you imagine in this role? Who could take on these mediation functions on the part of Germany? Thank you.
You see, you said things to which I want to draw attention. The first is that Europe would like to take part in negotiations. And the second is, who, besides Mr. Schröder, could act as a mediator? It is one thing to take part in negotiations, and another to be a mediator. But what kind of mediator can the European Union or individual countries of the European Union be when they directly assist the country with which we have an armed conflict? They are factually being dragged into combat actions. What kind of mediators are they? Mediation presupposes neutrality. Where is the neutrality here? First. And second, I saw with surprise the reaction to what I said about Mr. Schröder as a possible negotiator. Such a stormy discussion began. No, Schröder is Putin's friend. Therefore, he cannot participate. He is not Putin's friend. He is a German statesman, moreover one of the best in my opinion, because he has his own position and the courage to defend it. There are few politicians in Europe now with such qualities. Right now, Europe, in principle, is experiencing a heavy situation, going through it with energy resources. It was precisely Schröder who was engaged in the construction of infrastructure objects, such as Nord Stream, in order to provide the German economy with reliable, cheap supplies from Russia. And moreover, he did not just secure the supplies, but also connected the counterparties, economic entities, subjects of economic activity with mutual obligations. And it is important not that we just have a good relationship with him, but it is important that he is a person who pursues the national goals of his country, but still a person who can be trusted. Therein lies the essence of the problem. After all, people who would like to act as mediators must be people who can be trusted by both negotiating parties. I, frankly speaking, simply do not see and do not understand how people can be trusted. How Russia can trust people who for more than a year have been repeating the necessity of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia. Therein lies the problem, Martin. This is a problem. But, nevertheless, we do not refuse. Please. We have never refused contacts with representatives of the European Union either, in one capacity or another. As mediators for negotiations with Ukraine, I already told you there are problems. And I think it's hard to disagree with this. But we do not refuse contacts. It is enough for them to pick up the phone, to call. If they want to come, let them come. It is they who do not want to. You know, I heard with surprise that Russia, such a malicious Russia, stopped supplying energy carriers to Europe. Why? We didn't stop. It's just that Europe refused to buy in the hope that everything would collapse for us. But they have already seen for themselves that nothing collapsed. But enough. They realize that this is a mistaken direction. They could have taken and changed this position just a little bit. No. They have made so many declarations publicly, made all sorts of declarations, that it is hard to change this position. I will not comment on anything. I just want to say that we didn't refuse. I want to confirm this once again. If someone considers it expedient to revive the dialogue with Russia, please, that's all. And who will be this negotiator on the part of Europe? I don't know. We are not imposing anything. I heard this clamor that Russia wants to impose something. Who will negotiate? Why, we are not imposing anything. But naturally, we want to understand who that could be. And I repeat once again, these should still be people who can be trusted. This is a working moment. This can be talked about quietly, calmly. Well, let's say, at the level of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or at the level of intelligence services. Contacts between intelligence services, by the way, continue.
You spoke of Nord Stream, respected Mr. President. Currently, members of the Alternative for Germany party are present at the Economic Forum, who, actually, advocate for Russia to resume gas supplies through Nord Stream. How do you assess this party? We will have elections at the state level and then again at the federal level. What do you expect from this party? How do you generally view this party, Alternative for Germany? Thank you.
It seems to me it would be incorrect on my part to give assessments of political forces in the Federal Republic. We know, and I know that, well, if this corresponds to reality, at least that's how I was informed, that Alternative for Germany today occupies the first line in the rating of political parties in the Federal Republic. It has overtaken both the CDU, CSU, moreover has already significantly overtaken them, and has gone completely head and shoulders forward, ahead of the Social Democratic Party of Germany. I don't want to comment on anything here. I will say only one thing. In my opinion, this is happening because the leaders of this party can clearly and distinctly formulate the interests of the German people and the German economy, and are not afraid to declare it and are ready to fight for it. And this is precisely reflected in the ratings, in the results. How this will move further, and how it will move further on the political scene of the Federal Republic, I don't know, and I don't want to guess. As for assessments, we welcome all political forces of the Federal Republic that would like to restore and develop relations with Russia, whether it is Alternative for Germany or any other party. We will work with everyone who wants to work with us.
Who definitely wants to work with us. That is Belarus. The Belarusian news agency Belta. Andrei Konstantinovich Mokar, please.
Good evening. Respected Vladimir Vladimirovich, first of all, thank you for such an opportunity to discuss topics in this truly open atmosphere that concern not only those gathered at this table. Relations between Belarus and Russia, and this has been said more than once, can be a kind of standard for interstate interaction, the search for a balance between integration and the unconditional preservation of sovereignty. Even in the EU, there is no similar degree of interaction yet. How do you think the emerging crisis of trust in relations with long-standing partners can be overcome? Partners who sometimes act factually to break relations. A crisis of trust with partners? Yes, a crisis of trust with our partners in the post-Soviet space, in particular, the events unfolding with Armenia.
You know, there is nothing supernatural here. Political forces that stand behind the current prime minister, they have long been saying this and are not ashamed, but are doing it openly. In fact, there is nothing bad here. They are orienting themselves toward some Western standards, toward European standards. I believe that it is the right of every sovereign country, which Armenia absolutely is, to choose some priority standards and corresponding partners that they believe are valuable for the development of the country, for strengthening independence, sovereignty, and main and first of all, the economy. What caused concern for us? It was that a law was adopted in Armenia on the beginning. It actually sounds exactly like that, by the way. Alexander Grigorievich drew attention to this. I even forgot about it. He actually named what the law is called, the beginning of the process of accession to the European Union. Normal. There is nothing particularly special here. But Armenia is within the framework of the Eurasian Economic Union, as I already said. We also spoke about this in Kazakhstan when we met with colleagues. Different standards, technical regulation, in the field of agriculture, in the field of transport, logistics, very many things that do not coincide. I would very much like that sometime in the historical perspective, all these technical standards, logistics, and so on, a huge number of all sorts of, at first glance, formal but very important moments for the development of the economy, so that they would coincide between the European Union and Eurasia. And then it would be a really big, huge economic space, as de Gaulle used to say, from Lisbon to the Urals, he said, but in fact to Vladivostok. But this cannot be done now. It is simply technologically impossible to do now. And the free trade zone of Eurasia and the EU are incompatible. Therefore, we, of course, became puzzled by this. If a law is adopted, this is no longer just a conversation, but a law. We would ask our Armenian colleagues to define as quickly as possible in which direction they will move. The organization of markets and the form of regulation inside Eurasia depend on this. After all, we too, just like the EU, argue over every issue. It's even uncomfortable to say sometimes they switch to raised tones and so on. It is important. Every comma is sometimes important there. For us, of course, in practical terms, it is of interest how this interaction will be built, including not only on energy carriers. Although this is important, because this is one of the few things left from the point of view of coordinating our entire policy, it is a common market for energy carriers. Look, even our colleagues in Germany are naturally interested in the question related to Nord Stream. This is a most important part as of today. Well, how about here, in the post-Soviet space, within the framework of the Eurasian Union? It is even more important. We only ask for this. All the more so because the adopting Prime Minister Pashinyan himself, he at one time, quite recently, said that he considers it necessary to hold a referendum on this issue. We have only one request, to do this as quickly as possible. And that's all. We have no claims. We will maintain normal relations with Armenia. whatever path it decides to go. That's all. As for other countries, despite all the difficulties of coordination, I repeat, we still reach agreements. We always reach agreements. We are sure that we will continue to reach agreements further on. After all, as far as Armenia is concerned, Russia insisted on having it join Eurasia at Armenia's request. Bearing in mind that, according to a number of parameters of the state of the economy, Armenia did not quite, as it were, fit into the general context. But now they decided that they need to think about another direction. We are not against it, please. We only ask to do this as quickly as possible, to define it, and to work with open cards. That's all. So I don't see any big problem of a political character here. Economy-wise, technically, there is. I hope we will sort this out too. By the way, regarding the Nord Streams, as you know, the Nord Streams were blown up there, but one string of Nord Stream 2, it is whole and unharmed. Through it, right as early as tomorrow, one could start pumping Russian gas to the Federal Republic of Germany. You know what? This is not a joke. Just press a button, and the gas is flowing. But for this, a decision of the government of the Federal Republic is needed. We have a valid contract between Gazprom and their partner in the Federal Republic. And contacts are maintained with Gazprom. They are in contact. Gazprom has never refused and is ready to supply as early as tomorrow. And Gazprom's partners want to as well. They want to. This means only a decision of the government of the Federal Republic is needed. And here a question of a political character arises. A question of sovereignty. Because this system was not only blown up, I consider this an act of state terrorism. I don't think you will disagree with me. One string is preserved and can work. But it is also under American sanctions. And if the government of the Federal Republic agrees with its partners, the sanctions are lifted, we press the button, and the gas flows, as early as tomorrow. But only Gazprom. This is a question of sovereignty. To agree or not to agree. Or without agreeing with anyone, they will simply say, no, we decided. Sorry, they will say to their partners in Washington. But we need it. We find it very difficult without this. We are going through very heavy trials. Such prices undermine the competitiveness of the German economy, harm the entire European Union, because Germany is still the locomotive of the entire European economy. We need this working system. Or they will agree peacefully, explaining the full seriousness of this situation. That's all. This is 25, and with an increase in volume, up to 28 billion cubic meters per year can be supplied, as early as tomorrow. But we just need it for Gazprom from the side of the German partners. A clear answer is needed whether they will take it or not, because otherwise we will place this on other markets. We will sell to other partners. The contract is valid. And it is not Gazprom that is failing to execute the contract. Gazprom is ready, the German partner is not taking it. Because there are instructions from Brussels and from Berlin not to take it. A ban, that's all. Let's continue.
Please, next. The MENA Agency, Egypt. Middle East News Agency, Shokrat Aref. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for the invitation to participate in this dialogue. My question is, how do you assess the role of President Sisi in the issue of establishing stability in the Middle East? And what role can Egypt and Russia play to reduce tension in the Middle East?
President Sisi is our good friend. I have very good personal relations with him. And I hope this helps to develop bilateral ties, and our trade turnover is stable, growing, and there are good prospects for the implementation of large projects. For more than a year already, we have been talking about creating a Russian technological valley in Egypt, in the Nile Valley. Now we are actively working on the implementation of the project to build a nuclear power plant in Egypt already. I hope that in the nearest future, in the years 26-28, the first block of the nuclear power plant will already start working. And the works continue in a very active manner. We attract a significant number of local specialists to construction works. So, this is a very powerful project, and we work actively in other directions. We have relations of trust in the sphere of political interaction on the international arena. We very highly value the efforts of President al-Sisi to settle all situations in the Middle East. Now, somehow, against the background of the unfolding events around Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, the tragedy of Palestine has been forgotten, but it hasn't gone anywhere. It hasn't gone anywhere. And here, the President of Egypt made and continues to make a very noticeable contribution to attempts to settle, in a just manner to settle all problems related to Palestine. Naturally, I want to emphasize this once again. In the opinion of the Russian Federation, a fundamental way to solve this issue can be only one: the creation of a full-fledged Palestinian state. I know that the President of Egypt is actively included in the agenda related to the settlement of the crisis in the Iranian direction. He is in constant contact with all participants in this process, and we are in contact with him too. We consult, listen, hear each other, and take into account each other's position. And I want to thank President al-Sisi for the attention he pays to the development of Russian-Egyptian relations. This is very important. Egypt is one of our most priority partners in the region.
One who spoke out against Middle Eastern conflicts was Spain. We have the EFE agency, editor-in-chief, director of the International Department, Jose Manuel Sanz Mingote, please.
Thank you very much. I want to thank our friends from the TASS agency. Thank you very much for the hospitality, Mr. President. My question is related to the theme on the Ukrainian issue. What prevents the achievement of a long-term peace in Ukraine to discuss all issues, the legitimate issues of Russia, all issues related to the conflict? We see, and you told us about this, that there were advances, but these achievements are achieved very slowly, especially in the Donbass region. We have seen multiple attacks from both sides. Is this not the moment when it is necessary to achieve a ceasefire regime? Sit down at the negotiating table, discuss all issues. Under these circumstances, perhaps the European Union, European countries cannot be mediators, but they can help in the search for a solution to this problem. Thank you very much.
I believe that yes, indeed, maybe the European Union could help in the search for a solution. It should, in my opinion, lie within the framework of those agreements we spoke about back in Anchorage. And the Ukrainian side knows about this very well. I want to repeat once again. Back then, and before Anchorage, a question was put before Russia whether Russia was ready to agree to a number of compromises. And during the visit to Anchorage, during the meeting with the President of the United States, I said that we are ready. And I said, what these agreements and these compromises consist of could consist of.
договоренности и эти компромиссы.
The question is for these compromises to be accepted by the Ukrainian side, but, judging by everything, based, first of all, on the internal political situation, I think that in Kyiv they are not ready for this. Because if peace is established there, the internal political struggle, the struggle for power in Kyiv, and the economic situation against this background, they will sharpen in a cardinal way. And I have the impression that, in reality, the ruling circles, they are not interested in a real cessation of combat actions. Because then the people currently in power will hardly have any good, I'll say carefully, very good prospects for retaining power. Yes, and economic problems need to be solved. European experts know how much money and within what timeframes, we are talking about hundreds of billions of euros, are needed to restore the economy of Ukraine. Well, I am aware of the proposals of the Chancellor of the Federal Republic that Ukraine should become an associate member and so on. This does not concern us at all. We are not against it, please. We are against the European Union turning into a military bloc. This causes our concern, of course, but against some economic integrations, please, for God's sake. But European experts know how much this costs. And European farmers know what the opening of European markets for Ukrainian agricultural goods will turn into for them. You know, I can talk about this for a long time, but answering simply to your question, I want to say, yes, probably, the European Union could play a positive role. But not by supplying weapons, but by attempts to convince the Kyiv authorities to agree to those compromises we spoke about in Anchorage. That's all.
Hello, Vladimir Vladimirovich. Thank you very much for the time given to us journalists. My question concerns the relations between our countries. I would like to find out how you assess the prospects for development of relations between Azerbaijan and Russia.
Russia is very good. We have always had and have good relations with Azerbaijan, both in the economy and in the political sphere. A couple of years ago, we signed a treaty on strategic interaction. That is how our relations are developing. President Aliyev invests a lot of effort into filling this treaty with concrete content. This is expressed in concrete directions of our cooperation. We have, in my opinion, accumulated investments there somewhere over 10 billion Russian in the economy of Azerbaijan. A large number of enterprises operate with Russian capital. We have close interaction on humanitarian issues. A large number, as is known, of Azerbaijanis work in the Russian Federation. They transfer funds, money to support their families, and we try to organize this in a proper, civilized manner. We have many issues of mutual interest in the sphere of logistics. The well-known North-South corridor with an exit to Iran. Now, of course, all this is slightly frozen in connection with the events around Iran. But, nevertheless, all this represents great mutual interest. We are very grateful to President Aliyev for helping us manage humanitarian aid in Russia. It must be said that the Azerbaijani side worked very effectively in this sense, reacted instantly to all our requests. And this is very important in order to soften the situation along this direction too. Therefore, trade turnover is growing. it must be said, and additional opportunities for the mutual supply of goods are opening up. We have negotiations on a whole number of concrete directions. For now, I even consider it premature to speak about this. But this concerns energy, first of all. We will meet with President Aliyev. We will definitely talk about all of this. In general, I believe that relations between the two sides are building up, and are building up in a very positive key.
Colleagues, the next question. Who? The Kyrgyz agency Kabar. Director Medabek Sharbret Aliyev, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to be present at today's meeting, with you as part of the leaders of news agencies, and allow me to ask two questions at once. Vladimir Vladimirovich, President Sadir Nurgozhoyevich Japarov has repeatedly emphasized that Central Asia should become a region of peace, good neighborliness, and joint development. Against this background, the election of Kyrgyzstan to the UN Security Council became an important event not only for our country, but for the whole region. What role, in your opinion, can Central Asia play in strengthening international security in the coming years? That is the first question. And the second question. This year, Bishkek hosts the SCO summit against the background of growing global challenges and instability. What joint initiatives within the framework of the SCO does Russia consider priority for strengthening regional security? And what key proposals does Russia plan to submit for discussion during the summit?
As for what we are going to submit to the summit, we, first of all, will orient ourselves toward the proposals of the Kyrgyz side as the country that is the host of this event. We know that both the President of Kyrgyzstan and all our colleagues are thinking over this, working on it. Our corresponding government structures are in constant contact, both along the lines of the MFAs and along the lines of economic departments. They are in constant contact and coordinate this interaction. I am sure that this will lead to the necessary compromises being achieved, if there is a need. And if speaking in a big way, tasks will be set for the further development of the association as a whole, not just formulations. After all, I want to draw attention to what? It was originally created as an instrument for resolving border issues between the People's Republic of China and those republics of the former Soviet Union that border China. Now it is already, I think, 27 countries. This is a serious association, in fact. From the outside, few people notice it, but concrete work on economic integration is going on there. And this is becoming a noticeable factor in regional affairs, at the very least. And since there are still 27 countries there, this is a serious matter. And what is important is that Central Asia, with the resources of the countries of Central Asia, with its huge territory, with its growing population, is attracting more and more attention from the entire international community, first of all, of course, based on the economic potential of this region. And everything done within the framework of the organization itself will absolutely represent interest both for Russia and for all our partners. Therefore, we absolutely wish success to our Kyrgyz friends and will facilitate in every way that this significant, in my opinion, event passes successfully.
Editor-in-Chief of the News Service for Europe and Africa, Pierre Assay, please.
Good evening, Mr. President.
There is a short question related to Ukraine that concerns the economy and Mr. Zelensky. The Russian economy shows that there are certain complexities regarding the economy and economic development. Since spending on military needs has increased in connection with the special military operation, is it possible that the Russian economy will withstand? And the second question concerns Mr. Zelensky. If you have to sit down at the negotiating table with him to sign a peace treaty, what will you say to him? And do you consider him a legal representative of Ukraine?
As for whether Mr. Zelensky is a legal representative of Ukraine, this is a question for lawyers, for legal analysis. Of course, if we reach the signing of some documents, I think that this is not a whim of ours. Any country in our position, of course, must sign documents of this kind. Without any exaggeration from the point of view of Russia and Ukraine, these are historical documents. With persons who are legitimate from the point of view of the Constitution, the basic law of the partner country, in this case, Ukraine. This is a question awaiting its painstaking researcher. I will not go into details now, there are many of them, I have already spoken about this. It is enough to look at what and how I say on this issue. But look, 2 years ago, exactly 2 years, in 2024, in May, I think the powers of Mr. Zelensky as president expired. Now, at the end of last year, at the beginning of this one, they spoke a lot about elections in Ukraine. Where are these conversations now? Will there be elections after all or not? You asked questions there, this matters after all. Now nobody says anything about this anymore. If they take place, then when? And of course, the result is very important. But according to the Constitution of Ukraine, a president can only have 2 terms of 5 years. If one takes the point of view of those who believe that President Zelensky prolonged his powers in a legal manner, then 2 years have already passed. And now what, is he going to be elected for another 5 years? It is not allowed by the Constitution. Only 2 terms of 5 years, that is, 10 in total. And where are the 2 years that he is in power now? Many questions. But if we still eventually reach the signing of documents, I think that if there is a desire to end the armed conflict by peaceful means, and Russia has such a desire, we will find those who must sign the corresponding documents. If only there were a desire. This is a very important, but it is still a legal question. As for what could be said to each other if we reach the end of the conflict, at the very least, one could and should say thank God that everything is over. Well, and the legal side of the case is subject, of course, to investigation at the level of good specialists. And I think this is clear. I want to repeat this once again. We can sign only with those people who absolutely are, in the full sense of this word, legitimate for signing documents of this kind. There are many options. The chairman of the Verkhovna Rada, maybe Zelensky himself. Well, one just needs to look at what these documents are and what legal consequences they will have. The most main thing would be the desire.
Самое главное было бы желание.
And how to formalize it, we will find a way.
I beg your pardon. I wanted to ask about the economy.
Что касается экономики,
I remember the former president of the United States saying that the economy of Russia was torn to shreds.
сказал,
Do not engage in wishful thinking.
как-то он однажды пошутил. Вот.
Everything must be evaluated with real figures, real trends,
Пророчили поражение на поле боя.
the real state of affairs, and the real state of the economy, in this case.
Штатов говорил о том, что экономика России разорвана.
By how much did the economy of the European Union grow over the last 3 years?
Мы за действительно.
Well, don't break your head over it. Somewhere in the region of 3%.
Реальным состоянием дел. Реальным
By how much did the economy of Russia grow?
экономика Евросоюза
By
за
10%.
годы насколько выросла? Ну, не забивайте.
More than 3 times more than the economy of the European Union.
Насколько выросла?
The leading economy of the Eurozone and the Federal Republic is less than 1%.
Чем экономика Евросоюза.
But the economy of Russia last year, a little bit, but still 1%. There is 1%, and it continues to grow now.
А экономика России в прошлом году
Yes, we have questions related to the macroeconomic state of the economy as a whole.
сейчас.
This is primarily the growth of inflation.
Все вопросы
That is precisely why the central bank, generally the financial authorities, took a number of decisions.
именно поэтому
Tough decisions to suppress the growth of inflation for the health of macroeconomic indicators.
жестких
And these are tough decisions, raising the key rate.
для оздоровления макроэкономических показателей.
But these measures yield results. They yield results.
Решения
Year on year for April,
ставки
the economy is returning, not fully yet, but returning confidently to the target indicators,
год к году
5.4%.
экономика
This is already a good result.
не полностью
At the same time, industrial production continues to grow.
но не планово
Real incomes of the population continue to grow.
0,5%.
Real incomes of the population grew somewhere by 28%
Продолжает расти.
and to a significant extent thanks to the growth of real wages, not nominal, but real wages, over 25%. We fulfill all social obligations to the citizens of the Russian Federation.
И в значительной степени благодаря росту
We index pensions, benefits, the minimum wage, benefits supporting families with children, and so on.
мы выполняем все социальные обязательства
We planned to reduce the number of people living below the poverty line to 7% by 2030.
минимальный размер.
In 2025, we fulfilled this task ahead of schedule, moreover exceeding the indicator, 6.7%.
И так далее.
I want to return you once again to Mark Twain.
К 2030 году планировали снизить
The measures carried out by our economic and financial authorities, I repeat, yield results, although we consciously went for that.
году. В 2025 году,
The central bank raised the key rate in a serious way,
причем с
and now it has reduced it several times already
0,7%. Так что
to 14.5%. Now it has reduced it.
к-
Many believe that this is too little.
но,
It needs to be reduced further.
но вот
But I will not comment on this now. We can debate for a long time. I constantly listen to this discussion between the economic bloc of the government and the central bank and so on.
банк поднял
But the result is achieved.
серьезным образом. А сейчас ее
We consciously went for this, understanding that the volumes of investments in capital would decrease.
слишком мало, нужно еще сокращать. Но я
Well, with such a key rate of the central bank, of course, investments will decrease.
дискуссии
We consciously went for the cooling of the economy.
банкам и так далее.
One can say that we overcooled it. One can say that not everything has been done in this direction yet. These are conscious steps. We do not want hyperinflation to be under 60–70%, like in some countries. We are fighting for the health of the Russian economy as a whole. I want to draw your attention to one more very important indicator. Our state debt stands at 15.6%. And how much is it in France? Over 100, probably? Over 119, I think, then. Well, yes, approximately. We have 15.6%. All this gives us reason to believe that we are on the right path and feel confident.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two questions. The first concerns Ukraine. President Trump made efforts to end the conflict in Ukraine. Do you believe that he got distracted by the war in Iran, or do you believe that he miscalculated and underestimated the complexity of negotiations with Ukraine? And the second question concerns your own political future, Mr. President. You have been governing the country for 26 years already. Do you plan to remain, to execute powers until 2036, as it seems to me is possible according to the Constitution? And do you believe that you will have enough endurance and health to last until 2036?
Only the Lord knows whether we will have enough health, both me and you, and everyone gathered here, to live until tomorrow, until the day after tomorrow, and even more so to solve some tasks facing us, to achieve the goals we set for ourselves. That's for starters. As for my decisions, indeed, the Constitution allows to run in 2030. But it seems to me it is early to talk about this. Quite frankly speaking, quite early. I am not even thinking about it now. Speaking absolutely frankly, I am not even thinking. Very many big, large-scale, and sharp questions stand before the country. They need to be solved, not thinking about this, but thinking about the future of Russia. That is what needs to be thought about. And that is the first thing. Now regarding the Ukrainian direction and regarding what the President of the United States did in attempts to settle the conflict. I have already spoken, and I believe that there is nothing bad in repeating it. I believe that President Trump sincerely strives for the settlement of the crisis in Ukraine. Yes, he himself has also spoken out publicly already. He said that he didn't expect it to be so difficult. Well, yes, indeed, from the outside, maybe some things seem not so difficult. And when you get into it, submerge into the problem, it turns out that there are not so few unknown components, and they matter. Well then, right now the question about the settlement of another crisis in the Iranian direction is indeed sharp. Naturally, we see all of this. We understand that the U.S. administration is distracted, is forced to engage primarily with this issue, because the crisis in Ukraine, I believe, is primarily local. But unfortunately, European states try to give it a global resonance. But the crisis around Iran clearly bears a global character. It is enough to look at how the closure of the Strait of Hormuz affects the world economy. Well, that's all. And of course, the administration pays great attention and significance to this. But the proposals that were made by President Trump, I have already spoken about this, can fully be laid at the foundation of peace agreements. Therefore, answering your question whether the administration acted in the right direction or not, yes, these are proposals that require compromises. Moreover, they are compromises both for one country and for the other, for Russia too. And we as a whole agreed with these compromises. It is necessary to convince the Ukrainian side of this, that's all. But as a whole, I believe that they can fully be laid at the foundation of agreements between Russia and Ukraine and can put an end to this conflict.
One more additional question concerning Iran. Could Russia play a role in settling this conflict, given your relations and the issue of enriched uranium?
I think that yes, we do not want to impose our services in any way, but our proposals are known to the American administration. They are also known to our Iranian friends, partners. In 2015, Russia played a positive role, quite a positive one. Back then, we removed enriched uranium from the territory of Iran to the territory of the Russian Federation, and this lay at the foundation of the JCPOA agreement. That is, the crisis was resolved, and the then American administration supported this. All of this was implemented and led to a detente of the situation. What is happening? There is uranium on the territory of Iran, it seems. Now nobody denies this. In this case, what? It comes immediately under the control of the IAEA. And the entire international community, including both the United States and Israel, becomes from this moment participants in the process of eliminating highly enriched uranium. Because everything is under their control, well, read, under the control of the IAEA, it has participation in the work of the IAEA, and everyone trusts the IAEA. Right away, here it is, the uranium, here is its volume, quantity, here is the control, and here is the beginning of enrichment, dilution. We have such capabilities now too, please. But, I repeat, this is a decision of all parties that strive for the resolution of the crisis. Please, we did this and are ready to do it now. We have good relations, relations of trust with Iran. This is a friendly country, and we, as is known, are implementing the project for the construction of Bushehr. We built a bloc, it works, we continue the construction. I think that the Iranian leadership and the Iranian people treat us with trust, with full trust. And this, by the way, this uranium could be used in the future as, well, to dilute, to use for peaceful nuclear programs in Iran. Under the control of the international community and the IAEA, it seems to me that this is one, at any rate, this is one of the methods. In this sense, it seems to me, Iran too could be satisfied with such a decision. Well, and all the other participants in the process who have some suspicions should also be satisfied. The uranium would be presented, removed, and placed under control. What's the problem then? And there is no problem. So it seems to me. I may be mistaken in something, but I don't even see what here could fail to suit someone. Moreover, originally, hello, Alyosha, they started talking. Originally this was true, not this year. Everyone agreed. Then mutual stiffening of positions went on. We said, all right, no, if not, then not. Please, sort it out. But the proposal is on the table, please. we are ready to do this just like in 2015? No. If not, then not. It means we will hope that the parties involved in this conflict will find another solution. If there is another solution, we will only be glad. And if something is needed from us, we will with pleasure support any solution of this kind that would lead to a detente of the situation.
Vladimir Vladimirovich, we have been working for an hour and a half. Would you permit maybe another 20 minutes?
Why no? Well, a couple of questions. Right now, the president of Uzbekistan is supposed to arrive. We have an event there, the groundbreaking for a nuclear power plant in Uzbekistan.
I already managed to blink at 3 of my colleagues, Martin Romanchik, Vijay Joshi, and Sans Mingoti. For God's sake, good. 3 questions, friends, and we finish.
Respected. Mr. President, 2 years ago, to the question of whether Russia is going to attack NATO, you answered, "All this is rubbish." In any case, it was reported so. But now, against the background of American plans not to deploy medium-range missiles in Germany, against the background of the appearance of new details that the U.S. will transfer its troops from Europe to Asian countries, talks are still being conducted that Russia could, in the foreseeable perspective, attack the territory of NATO.
Well, one simply needs to ask oneself a question. Everyone who thinks about this should ask themselves a question. What for? Why do we need this? Understandably, the conflict in Ukraine. At the foundation of the conflict lies the coup d'etat in Ukraine and the suppression of everything Russian there. The suppression of a significant part of the population of this country that did not recognize the results of this coup d'etat. This is a Russian-speaking country after all. Why, even these so-called nationalists, they mostly speak Russian at home. But that's not the point. The point is that after the coup d'etat, events began inside Ukraine itself. And we, in the end, I won't speak now about how it happened, the Minsk agreements and so on, in the end, were simply forced, to support a part of the people who live in the territories that did not recognize this coup d'etat. And, besides everything else, also the dragging of this territory into NATO. Listen, why, they simply deceived directly. Everyone, why, you all know about this well. Well, truly. Starting from '91, they said, NATO will not make a single step to the east, including the General Secretary saying it, a citizen of the Federal Republic of Germany. What was his last name, frankly speaking? I don't recall right now. At that period, he was the General Secretary of NATO. Well, all right. But what does Europe have to do with this? What sense is there for us at all? What reason to attack Europe and fight with NATO? Well, this is simply, I say that this is rubbish, but it seems to me that this is not simply rubbish. This is a deliberate provocation in order to create a threat that does not really exist and force the population of their countries to spend more money on defense as a first step to pay for that regime that seized power in Kyiv. Here, it seems to me, is the answer. Not simply rubbish. It is a provocation. But me, you know what surprises me? It surprises me that a part of the population of European countries, strange as it may be, believes in this. Well, this is simply absurd. It would be funny if it weren't so sad. Why, we kept saying all the time that one of the goals of our operation is the denazification of Ukraine. And everyone from all sides kept telling us, well, what are you on about? What denazification? And in general, what is this denazification? This is some nonsense you are weaving there. We are weaving nonsense. Why denazify Ukraine? Listen, respected colleagues, why everyone saw but almost nobody speaks about this? Why the reburial of Nazis and nationalists who in Ukraine during the Second World War destroyed Jews, Poles, and Russians? How many, I think, 1 million Jews were destroyed in Ukraine? 1 million innocent people. And right now in Ukraine, their remains were reburied with military honors and with a salute as heroes of Ukraine. Only Poland reacted sluggishly there, Israel even more sluggishly. Everyone tries not to notice. Bashfully not to notice. And who is doing this? The current head of the Kyiv regime, a Jew by nationality. His grandfather, who fought against Nazism, probably turned over in his grave. There is such an organization of Ukrainian nationalists, UPA, absolutely pro-Nazi organization. Its name is assigned to current units of the armed forces of Ukraine. Listen, there, I think, it is written in the law, or they are going to write it, that propaganda of Nazism is banned. But it would be necessary to draw the attention of the Ukrainian authorities to the fact that it is not enough to write it in the law. It would be necessary to execute this law. I understand that the so-called collective West does not want the strengthening of Russia. The collective West wants to use Ukraine so that Russia does not defend its national interests so zealously, should know its place, and so on. You understand, after all, what a threat from the revival of Nazism there is for everyone. Not only that weapons from the territory of Ukraine are scattering all over the world. This is already a fact. Not only that corruption flourishes there, everything has grown through. Such roots this corruption has put down. But Nazism is reviving. What to do with this later? Colleagues talk about the fact that Ukraine must be a part of the European Union, or an associate member in some other capacity. Well, all right, one needs to think about this after all. These are facts after all. This was just happening. A few days ago, they reburied one of the Nazis. Precisely by his hands, Jews, Poles, Russians, and Gypsies were destroyed. 1 million. With military honors, with a shot into the air, and silence. I understand that they want to use everything for the fight against Russia in some countries, but this is a threat for everyone after all. But one needs to think about this after all. Therefore, as for Russia's attack on Europe, this, of course, is rubbish. But not only. This is also a provocation and disinformation with the aim of fooling one's own population. For knocking out money for the fight against Russia, for the demilitarization of their economies.
Mr. President, earlier today you spoke about Russian-Chinese relations, and you said that this started not yesterday, that these are relations that developed for centuries. India has the same relations with China, but relations of a different sort. We have complex relations with China, but at the same time, India has complex relations on the western border with Pakistan. I think you understand what I am getting at. Today, Pakistan is under the control of China from a military point of view. 80% of military equipment in Pakistan is of Chinese origin. China also provides advanced technologies to Pakistan, both intelligence data and military equipment. And this causes concern in India. You have very good relations both with China and with Pakistan. Would you like to do something to ensure the security interests of India in this connection? And one more question. Today, I heard that the latest S-400 battalions have been successfully delivered to India. There remains a fifth one. What advanced technologies will the 5th Battalion use? And what are the timeframes for the joint development of the Su-57 advanced fighters and the development of new nuclear submarines? Thank you.
Of course, we are well aware of all the pitfalls. Well, maybe not all, but at any rate, the main problems related to the situation on the border, with the situation between Pakistan and India. You know, Pakistan, you said that it is wholly and completely a country under the control of China. I don't think so. Well, still, first of all, Pakistan is a large enough country, and Pakistan has very diverse ties. Yes, of course, issues related to cooperation with the People's Republic of China have great significance for Pakistan. But everyone is developing relations with China, one of the largest economies in the world, by purchasing power parity #1 in the world. #1, India occupies 3rd place. Russia is 4th by purchasing power parity. By the way, this is also to your French colleague regarding the state of the Russian economy. China, USA, India, Russia. By purchasing power parity, 4 countries. We, by the way, overtook all European countries and Japan too. Interfering in such delicate relations, multifaceted, between 2 countries, such as India and China, is a thankless task. But we are in contact naturally with our friends both in India and in China. And you know what I want to draw attention to? I will not go into details because it is incorrect. But I can say with confidence that both Prime Minister Modi and the chairman of the PRC, Xi Jinping, they strive on both sides toward the resolution of all issues that represent mutual interest, including within the framework of relations on the border. I don't doubt this in the least. And we, and Russia, have our own relations both with China and our own relations with India. You spoke about this. As for... And this does not offend anyone. Believe me, it doesn't offend anyone. They were formed over decades. From decade to decade, this all was formed in a natural way. Russia's relations with India do not hinder China. Russia's relations with China do not hinder India. And the link of the 3 countries helps everyone. Here we speak of BRICS. Do you know where BRICS was born? Here, in St. Petersburg. Here I once proposed to meet to the leader of China, the leader of the Indian government, and your humble servant. Here the 3 of us met. And the RIC emerged, Russia, India, and China. And we found what to talk about. Found a theme on which we could agree. And we agreed. Then Brazil joined us, asked for participation in the 3-sided format. BRICS turned out. And then South Africa. BRICS turned out. And then further on went the expansion. That is, when we meet and talk, we agree. I repeat, no questions about Russia's cooperation with China, Russia's cooperation with India arise. And our branched interactions within the framework of military technical interaction are well known to everyone, with which we work. Moreover, we work with India also on the development of modern means of armament. Why, the whole world knows the medium-range missiles BrahMos, now both of sea and land basing, and so on we develop. As for the Su-57, we once offered our friends from India to develop this machine together. This machine is of the 5th generation. I think it is the best in the world as of today. But our Indian friends then said, well, let's have you do it yourselves, and we will look later. In principle, this plane could have been our joint production. We made it independently, and we are ready, of course, to work with India and to supply, and to develop further. Well, here there are no limitations. We have no limitations. This same thing applies to air defense systems. This means, well, air defense systems, it is necessary, it is important to have a separate machine in isolation. But it is even more important to create an air defense system. What does this mean? What does this mean? This means working along altitudes, against different targets, against low-flying, slowly flying, highly flying ones. It is important, means, to sew all this into one information system that would work in real-time mode. Non-simple task, highly technological. And right now, yes, we are working at home, improving this system. Not everything is resolved yet, but this is simply a unique experience. Unique. There is no such experience anywhere. We have it. And we are ready to share both with our Chinese friends and with our Indian friends. And we share. And work in all these directions is going on. And with India, it will continue.
Colleagues, the last question. Briefly, please. Thank you very much.
I would like briefly to ask a question, namely to clarify whether I understood correctly or not your answer to the question. Do you deny the suspension of military actions to start negotiations? And the second question is related to that question which we dedicate precisely to the Latin American continent over the duration of recent months. Have you had any contacts with the USA on the Cuban issue? And if the operation, what happened in Venezuela, did you speak about the capture of President Nicolas Maduro? What will be the response to this on the part of Russia?
As for contacts on the Cuban issue, I will answer directly to a direct question from your side. You asked whether we had contacts with the American administration on the Cuban issue. We did. I wouldn't like to comment further. As you know, we sent a tanker with oil products to Cuba. Cuba is a friendly side to us over the course of decades. Traditionally, relations were formed. The U.S. administration knows about this. Contacts with Cuba continue. Now regarding the suspension of combat actions in order to start negotiations. In order to start negotiations, there is no necessity for the suspension of combat actions. There is no necessity. And we had negotiations. Combat actions did not stop. What is the problem? Let's speak honestly, frankly. I named fundamental things related to how to pass the conflict. I answered this question to the American colleague. There is a whole set of components there. Russian troops are advancing every day. And every day, if you follow closely the reports of unfolding events, you will hear that new settlements are being put under the control of the Russian armed forces. Recently, I repeat, almost 2,500 square kilometers passed under the control of the Russian army. 24, 40, hundreds of square kilometers. Naturally, under these conditions, the Ukrainian side would want us to suspend the movement of Russian troops. Over there in the Zaporozhye region, we have movement by kilometers every day. A kilometer 200, a kilometer 300, 800 meters. Along the front, just as much into the depth. Of course, they want to stop this. But it is better not to stop this, but it is better to stop the war as a whole. Agreeing to those compromises that were discussed in Anchorage.
Please. Thank you, Mr. President. One more question concerning Russia's relations with its European neighbors. The Associated Press wrote that hundreds of cases of illegal activity have been observed on the territory of Europe since 2022, and these actions are connected with Russia.
On the territory of European countries?
Yes, correct. Actions of Russia and its associated countries. Actions such as sabotage, assassination attempts, cyber attacks, and influence operations. Western politicians say that this is only the tip of the iceberg, and this is only what was managed to be proved or detected. Does this mean that Russia is already waging a war against the West, or is there a risk of escalation?
This means nothing except one thing. This means only an attempt by some political figures of Western European countries to implement aggressive plans regarding the Russian Federation. You spoke of some attempts of cyber attacks, some more attempts and other things, and drew attention to the fact that this talk, as you said, is only about proven, detected facts. And what of it? Name at least one proven fact. How did it sound from one of the prime ministers? How did she say? She said that it is highly likely.
Highly likely.
There. Everything you said is highly likely. Where? At least one fact? No, not a single one. This means there is simply no desire to talk with Russia as an equal partner. But this will have to be done. We are in no hurry. Even if you gather 9 pregnant women together, as is known, a child still won't be born in a month. The situation must mature. And I think that the matter is heading precisely toward this. It seems to me it is gradually maturing. We, I repeat, are ready. It is necessary to stop these mutual accusations. And if there is a desire among Europeans to work with us, let them cast away their colonial approach and talk with Russia as an equal partner. And together with us, look for options for solutions, even if of very complex questions, but requiring resolution in the interests of both Russia and our European partners. We are ready for this.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Vladimirovich.
One cannot treat women this way and close on this. Please.
Thank you very much. I would like to know your point of view in what concerns the energy crisis as consequences of the crisis around Iran, and what the prospects of this crisis are.
If you asked, probably, representatives of the American administration, they would answer me. Because I have such a feeling that they don't have a final decision yet either. But, without any doubt, the Iranian people have proven that their interests must also be taken into account when resolving crises of this kind. The Iranian people showed cohesion and readiness for struggle. This is a factor that absolutely must be taken into account in the final resolution of these problems. Of course, for us, the situation is not simple from a political point of view. Also because over the recent decades, we have developed very good, friendly relations with Arab countries, including from the side of the Persian Gulf. And in contacts with our Iranian friends, we always emphasize this. I will say, without bashfulness here, from the very beginning of the conflict, especially when it was happening in the month of Ramadan, we spoke about calling upon our Iranian friends to refrain from any military actions whatsoever regarding other Islamic states, especially in the month of Ramadan, the holy month. But the logic and dynamics of events developed differently. We proceed from the fact that still, the efforts of the American administration, the efforts of President Trump, and the consistent opposition stance of the spiritual leader of Iran, which is aimed at protecting the interests of his country and at the search for a compromise, we see that such a search from both sides takes place. We hope that this search will conclude with a positive result. The conflict will be ended, escalated. If at least something depends on Russia, we are always ready to lend a shoulder. If not, we will simply rejoice together with everyone when this crisis is ended. These are speculations only regarding the fact that Russia is almost the only beneficiary of this conflict in connection with the growth of prices for energy carriers. Yes, the growth of prices takes place. We see this perfectly well, understand. And, of course, to a certain extent, our companies win from this. But this all bears a temporary and short-term character. But we would want to build relations with all partners for the long haul, and on a solid base of mutual interest. And in this case, our interest lies in having the conflict ended, and as quickly as possible. We welcome that despite certain hitches, a ceasefire regime, a truce, is active now. And we are doing everything on our part that is possible so that such a situation helps the resolution of the conflict as a whole. We remain in contact with all our friends. I will repeat once again, we will do everything that depends on us if our help is needed for the conflict to be ended. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vladimir Vladimirovich.